And good afternoon for everyone who's joining. We're just going to give another minute or two. I see the numbers just spike, so that's great. We will get started at about 1 or 2 after the hour, just letting more folks get into the room here. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So we're going to get started for the sake of everyone's time. Appreciate everyone popping on with us today. My name is Bill Garrity. I'm part of the Vigilant Solutions Motorola team who is moderating today's session in regards to increasing safety and efficiency through an LPR-based enforcement on a specialized vehicle. I'm going to read the bios for our key presenters today. So we have Franz, who's a vice president at Westward Industries. Chris serves as vice president and co-owner of Westward Industries, proud makers of the Go 4 and Max parking specific vehicles. Since 2012, Chris has focused on building Westward into a top-tier specialized vehicle producer, supporting customer fleets that must work day in and day out while embracing today's revolutionary technologies is challenging, fascinating, and rewarding. Primary responsibilities include management, sales, and quality assurance in the production in our growing line of specialized vehicles. And also today we have my colleague, Alex Tallentire. Alex is a director of parking and mobility solutions at the Vigilant Solutions team, now part of Motorola. Alex has a passion for using technology to solve real-world problems in the parking and mobility space. For the last 7 years, Alex has had a focus on sales and implementation of multi-space meter and enforcement technology. Through this experience, he has seen the industry shift towards a license plate enabled ecosystem and the benefits it brings into any parking operation. Alex's focus is on sales and innovation of our parking and mobility solutions. He works with both public and private sector clients to craft efficient solutions that can help keep communities safer. Without further ado, we're going to get started. And Alex, I think you're up first, so go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Bill, and thank you everybody for hopping on. We have great attendance today. Chris, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, please. So to start, I'd like to set the stage for our topic at hand and talk a little bit about parking enforcement officers, also known as PEOs. As many of us have experienced, there's no other individual in a parking environment that does more routine patrols of a downtown area or a campus than a parking enforcement officer. So whether they're focusing on parking enforcement specifically or community engagement, they're really the eyes and the ears of a parking operation. They're the ones getting consistent interaction with parkers regarding their questions, their comments, and even complaints. And then they can share all that to really help improve on how an operation can serve the public even better. So knowing this, it's essential to understand how technology and other tools at the officer's disposal can help empower them to do their job most efficiently. So whether it's a small town, large city, higher education institution, the parking enforcement officer is really always responsible for covering a geographic area efficiently. Today, we're going to go and discuss how to utilize license plate recognition technology, also referred to as LPR, on a vehicle that's designed specifically for parking enforcement, and how this can help a parking enforcement officer accomplish their daily goals. Next slide, please. So those who've been in the industry, even for a few years, have seen the pace of innovation that's happened in the parking mobility space. It's been really pretty amazing. So in the beginning, on-street parking was really dominated by single space, coin-only mechanical meters, and enforcement was handled by parking enforcement officers who mostly just walked the beats on foot. They were issuing handwritten parking violations, was a very slow, took a long time to issue those citations. So later on came the introduction of multi-space meters. So those could work in a pay and display fashion or a pay by space fashion, as well as single space credit card meters. So along the way, PEOs started using handheld computers and printers to more quickly issue their parking citations electronically. And after the recent shift to pay by license plate, the public can now pay for parking using mobile payment applications and multi-space meters with a full alphanumeric keypad. More recently, companies like Ford and BMW have created partnerships that actually allow the parker to pay for time from and inside of their vehicle. And this further speeds up the payment process and really improves the user experience. And there are more manufacturers, it seems like every month, that are beginning to adopt this model. So given this evolution, operations are thinking of new ways to more efficiently enforce their parking assets, and that's what we'll be focusing on in today's presentation. Next slide, please. So the boom in innovation has also led to an increase in different payment providers. So this includes digital permits that no longer require a physical hang tag, and reservations applications that allow parkers to book time in advance to ensure that they have a spot secured beforehand rather than getting on site and trying to find a spot. So this is coupled with the wide adoption of pay by license plate as the payment preference. This has then driven the need for license plate recognition technology. And this can check the vehicle's status compared to the rules allotted for a particular parking area. Next slide, please. So when an operation's looking to adopt license plate-based technology for mobile enforcement, there's really 4 solutions that they want to keep in mind. And that's going to be discussed today. So those are payment and permit verification, SCOFFLAW enforcement, digital chalking, and data sharing that we'll dig into. There are some additional benefits of utilizing license plate recognition technology that are analytics specific to vehicle behavior. Some of those are historical and current occupancy, the average amount of time a parker is staying within a parking zone, also known as dwell time, and a historical look into areas where the most parking violators are seen. So all these metrics help drive operational improvements to help parking operations enforce more efficiently based on hard data. And it's important to keep in mind that this data is all anonymous. It's simply a photo of a vehicle, the license plate number, and there's never any vehicle owner information tied to the data. It's also important to note that even after license plate photos and the license plate numbers are deleted from the system, and this is based on the user's set data retention policy, reports and analytics can still be used accessing this anonymizing of data. So this allows operations to still get historical insights to improve their operation while still abiding by data retention policies, which is very important. Next slide, please. So first, paid and permit verification identifies unpaid and unpermitted vehicles seen by LPR technology. And this is comparing the detections to the rules that are pre-configured within a back office. As you can all see here, alerts in the field are instantaneously received, and they're also really easily viewable from a tablet or laptop in the parking specific vehicle. So inside of that vehicle, officers will see an overview image and a plate read, and they'll be able to see the specific alert with the type of infraction. And you see 3 different types of infractions shown here: unauthorized vehicles, which are unpaid; expired parking, which means there's an overstay of a zone; or scofflaw alert, which is a vehicle on a hot list. And this allows officers to review the hit information, make a decision, and then they can write a warning or citation through a third-party enforcement software of their choice, really speeding up the process of identifying the vehicle in violation to ultimately issuing a good citation. Next slide, please. Utilizing a parking enforcement vehicle and LPR technology together, which is what we're highlighting today, really allows operations to take a new approach to enforcement. And this is known as directed enforcement. So this utilizes a combination of LPR technologies to dispatch enforcement officers to areas that have known violators rather than sticking to just a predetermined enforcement route. It's a very common practice, but as we'll discuss later, utilizing a vehicle specific for this parking enforcement practice really makes directed enforcement easier than ever before. Rather than sticking to a set path, as shown on the screen here, there's individual pins on where vehicles in violation have been seen, allowing the enforcement officer to make better use of his or her time by focusing on the, quote, troubled areas rather than sticking, again, to that predetermined path that they might be doing each and every day. Next slide, please. So in addition to more efficient paid enforcement, mobile and even fixed LPR cameras can be continuously comparing each detection or read to a hot list. And that can provide near real-time alerts to parking enforcement staff. So this hot list can be a banned vehicle or a parker that's on a SCOFFLAW list due to their outstanding parking citation debt. So regardless of the camera that scans the hot listed plate, the correct enforcement personnel can receive an alert inside of a parking specific vehicle or in the back office to dispatch them or to alert them to issue an immobilization on a vehicle as shown here. And next slide, please. So paid areas are absolutely essential to enforce from this parking specific vehicle, but many operations have a mix of paid and time limited areas or even drop-off zones that require time-limited enforcement. So using a combination of back-office software and mobile LPR cameras, alerts can generate if a vehicle is overstaying a time-limited zone. And using these LPR data points, this prevents the need to have an enforcement officer on foot, physically chalking tires, again, sticking to a traditional route. Rather, they can be driving their vehicle, doing other tasks, while simultaneously identifying if a vehicle is in violation of a time-limited zone for that specific part of town. And next slide, please. So finally, mobile LPR can help support data sharing initiatives. What this allows is a parking enforcement operation to more efficiently and responsibly work with local law enforcement. So parking LPR data can be shared to the local jurisdictional agency to help keep the community safer. It's really important to note that operations should be able to choose if and who they share LPR data with, and they should never be required to do so. Also, it's essential that if a parking detection creates a law enforcement alert based on that law enforcement hot list, only law enforcement should see that alert, not anybody from parking operations. So now that we've covered a brief history on the evolution of enforcement, we've talked about some of the current best practices using license plate recognition technology, I'm going to turn it over to Chris, and he's going to discuss the history and current best practices of these parking enforcement specific vehicles. And that's going to really allow for optimal enforcement. So Chris, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Alex, and great job today. I'd like to remind everybody that if you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A box or the chat box. You can use that at any time, and we'll try to answer questions as they come up. So as Alex mentioned, I'm here today to talk about PSVs, parking-specific vehicles. Just a quick little history note on this. Early models, which date back as far as about the 1950s, which certain well-known names such as Cushman, were built mostly for a chalking, which improved efficiency over walking or conventional vehicles. And then the function slowly improved over the years by adding things such as sliding doors, etc. The compact overall size is always very key to minimizing traffic interruption. And then many of the early models had inherent issues, you know, whether it was a manual drive, whether it was the engine actually being placed under the operator, which provided a tremendous amount of heat for the cab. There was many flaws that were just improved over the years and continue to be improved today. Newer versions, you have 100% electric platforms in different lithium-ion packs. You have a very dependable gas platform, which is also very reliable. These both allow for factory installation of LPR technology. Newer models also have comfort amenities such as air conditioning, premium air ride seats, automatic transmissions, also safety options such as safety glass and safety beacons. Also new PSV models arriving in 2020, which we will touch upon pretty soon. Efficient enforcement with a PSV. So here we're just going over some of the inherent efficiencies, the inherent design improvements that you will see over a conventional vehicle or over walking. So a parking enforcement operations greatly benefits from a PSV that not only save fuel, but also allow navigation of tight spaces in a parking garage or maneuvering roadways with ease when enforcing on street. only 4.5 feet wide and with a compact turning radius. Double sliding doors allow the operator to always avoid traffic as well. And just touching a little bit more upon the turning radius, we do a little bit of a market comparison. So your typical PSV has a turning radius of 9 feet. A conventional sedan, such as a Toyota, Honda, Ford, usually comes in around 17 to 19 feet. And a truck or SUV is between 21 to 27 feet. So you can imagine with a 9-foot turning radius, it's going to be much easier for the park enforcement operator to be able to turn around and head back up the other way. Again, minimal traffic interruption and also avoiding traffic congestion. Parking specific vehicles have half the footprint and weight of a larger vehicle, roughly 1,500 pounds to 4,000, 5,000 pounds for larger vehicles. They can maneuver easily and turn within lanes with ease, which also allows for an improved citation rate. So the quicker the PEO can do their job, the quicker they can get to writing up or placing that citation, the greater the efficiency will be for that day. PEO comfort and strain reduction. At 6 feet tall, this vehicle is basically tailor built for the needs of the task-specific job that a PEO has to do. So very easy to get in and out of. Sometimes PEOs have to get in and out 100, 200 times a day. A lot of strain on the back, the legs, etc. So these vehicles also help reduce back strain, which in turn reduces long-term injuries and disabilities. I really do like these two images because it quickly gives you, when they say an image speaks 1,000 words, that's how I feel about these two images. It gives you a quick look at the comparison of a conventional vehicle, I believe in New York City, that is pushed aside by a delivery truck and is forced to go into the cyclist lane. And you can see that this is a potentially disastrous accident that is about to happen. On the right side, you see a PSV next to a large SUV in a parking lane, and it is still not interrupting the traffic lane as you see the cyclists going by pretty carefree. So that minimal compact footprint, but still safe, still robust, 2.5-inch roll bar chassis for safety, just allows, again, the PEO to do their job quicker than in a conventional vehicle or by walking. Here we've created an illustration that just explains a little bit the 3 prevalent methods in enforcing, in using also LPR methods. So the first one would be on foot. The second one is a standard vehicle, and the third one would be a parking specific vehicle. So here we're just showing, and also with the time study on the next page, that you can cover much more time, much more space in less time when you compare to these 2 other methods. And in this, we go to this case study that we created in New York City. So we measured 10 New York City blocks, or 1.7 miles. And then we dictated and wrote down how long each method took. So the travel time for walking at approximately 2.5 miles per hour was 41 minutes. In a standard vehicle or in a parking specific at 20 miles per hour, it's 5 minutes. The citation time, we allotted a standard 5 minutes per citation for 5 citations. So you'll see 25 minutes across the board. And then for the standard vehicle, we have to allot for a walk back. So for 5 citations, 3 minutes per citation, that totals 15 minutes, and 6 minutes across the board for traffic lights. When we add this up, and this is really only for 10 city blocks, so this is just a little synopsis of the day in a PEO. The PSV took 36 minutes to do this job. The standard vehicle took 51 minutes, and walking took 72 minutes. Now that's comparing 2 full-blown LPR, and typically with walking, there's going to be more manual input, so it's actually going to be greater than 72 minutes. But for the purpose of this study, we left it equal. So you'll see 42% gains and 100% gains to walking in this physical time study. So really just noting, listing how long these 3 different methods took. And also, if anyone is interested after this webinar, we do have another sheet that basically lists lost revenues over a 7-year life cycle with some cost comparisons. Very interesting page. Just reach out afterwards. Purpose-built and factory delivered with LPR. This is definitely one of the great things in collaboration with Motorola that we are trying to offer. We continue to try and make our PSVs and the Go 4 more and more purpose-built. So on the left side, you will see an image of a brand new LPR-ready upper dash. And what we did with this dash in mind is how can we make it work better for the job of the parking enforcement operator. So we basically, if you could imagine, cut the dash in half, turned it into almost what is more of a desk, and put LPR front and center. So you'll find the tablet or laptop front and center. You have great visibility, and then you have some recessed pockets for handhelds, notepads, etc. Our center display has moved over to the left because really they only need to see, fuel or battery power. It's not a display that you need to stare at all day, such as with the LPR monitor. On the right side, we have a quick image of our assembly line. And one of the points that we're trying to drive in this webinar is that we are one of the very few vehicle makers that are involved in the parking enforcement industry. And we build these vehicles from the ground up. So we bend the tube, we weld the chassis, we powder coat, and then it goes down the assembly line. So you can imagine for us to install LPR hardware is going to be much quicker, much simpler than doing a retrofit in the field. So you can imagine that if ordered beforehand, this vehicle will arrive with all LPR hardware, cameras, etc., all mounted and ready to go and ready for the on-site technician to do the final configuration. Just going over 1 or 2 advantages over the next page or 2. So a few PSV advantages that we need to remember about. One very common trend in parking right now is be a community ambassador. So do not simply go around with an isolated enforcement look, an isolated enforcement culture, which would be the bottom right image. Basically just an island of enforcement. It looks like enforcement. It does not look approachable. And that vehicle is doing the same job as the vehicle right above it. And as you can see, this was a day in Aspen. This PO, a wonderful lady by the name of Olive, was so helpful and so engaged with the community. She was probably interrupted for half a minute every hour, just with questions about people confused about the curb, confused about the signs, can I park here? How long can I park here for? And she felt, she really embraced this. She felt like a community ambassador. She promoted interaction, dialogue, sharing of knowledge, and of course, approachability. We also, as mentioned before, have open doors on both sides of the vehicle. So it just allows for a much more approachable look. New PSVs coming out for 2020. So we have been working over the last 1.5 years to develop the new Max 4-wheel vehicle. That would be the top right image. This would be a lithium ion. It would be an LSV, so limited to 25 miles per hour. Optional right-hand drive for parking enforcement. Also, one nice advantage is that this will be a twin passenger vehicle. Again, always LPR ready, so the hardware can come ready from the factory. And on the bottom right, we have a new Max 3, which is a 3-wheel version of the Max. And the interesting dynamic with this is that with the Max, the 2 wheels are actually up front. So that allows us space inside to remain twin passenger. That allows for greater stability. So you'll see the speed is actually limited to 45 miles per hour on the 3-wheel Max. And I believe that is it for today's presentation, other than any questions. Just in quick recap, LPR is an essential part of the equation for data insight and intelligent enforcement. PSVs are tailor-built to be the most efficient and safe delivery method for citations. And maybe I'll hand this back over to you, Bill, if
Great.
you have any questions or anything.
Yeah, we had a couple submitted questions. The first one being, how did the last, I assume it's the last vehicles you showed up there, handle snow and ice conditions?
Well, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Westward, but we build them in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, which is some of the most extreme weather really in the world. You know, we'll see 100 degrees in summer, we'll see -40 in winter, and we test drive them all year round. We do not even put winter tires on them. They handle great. If you do have a colder climate, I would recommend, like with any other vehicle, winter tires. But you know, there are definitely many cities in cold climates, such as Fargo, North Dakota, that do use them. So they drive very well overall in cold climate.
Great. Alex, this is probably one for you. This is one that was submitted directly to me. Can you talk more about the factory direct model? How does this work between Motorola and Westward?
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Very good question. So as Chris alluded to, the factory direct model is definitely unique. Typically in an LPR procurement, an end user might have a vehicle in mind, and then the LPR equipment is put on after the fact. So the vehicle is at the customer shop, and then it's installed by a third party that is approved and trained by Motorola. But the benefit here of factory direct is the cameras, as well as that in-vehicle hardware that you saw, the tablet, is all installed at Westward's factory. So you truly get a turnkey kind of drop shipped vehicle with LPR on it. So that really eliminates the time needed to get a third-party installer on site. So it really speeds up the installation process. You also have a lot of quality assured by having it done at the factory. And ultimately, Motorola still has a field technician that does visit the customer on site for training and what we call final commissioning, which is more or less aiming the cameras and ensuring you're ready to go. But that middle step of the actual installation is all handled at the factory level. So it's truly LPR drop shipped, which is really a new method.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank
Bill.
you, Alex. Chris, this one's directed at you. How do they hold up in saltwater environments? We patrol the beach and our golf carts don't hold up very well.
They hold up very well in saltwater environments. Probably our largest market would be California, especially coastal California, where you'll see a lot of the density and where, of course, parking enforcement is extremely important. And there are beach communities that have vehicles that are up to 20 years old. So we actually put a fairly thick powder coat on each vehicle. So it actually, the roll bar chassis will last for many years. We are definitely a much more robust alternative than, you know, something you might see in a golf cart.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Alex, this probably one's for you. Can you talk about a customer that is utilizing Go4 with LPR through this model? I assume they meant the factory direct model.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually the last question that was asked is a good segue to this as well. So a good example, one that comes to mind as a recent installation, is Belmar in New Jersey. They really have an innovative approach to their parking operation. So first off, they're really looking to move towards contactless as much as possible for their payments. And as a result, they're all license plate enabled parking payments. So they are utilizing mobile LPR on a Go4 to do that enforcement. So we got folks on site to conduct training and that final commissioning. So they're utilizing that full model, also right on the coast. So they're able to see the benefits of a Go4 compared to a traditional golf cart. So that's just one I can think of. I also wanted to add as well, for anybody on the line that may have existing vehicles with Westward Industries, we also do have some great retrofit kits for mobile LPR. So in addition to Belmar, there's a number of others, some of which had equipment already in the field And through our partnership and working together, our technicians understand how to put hardware into those existing Go4s in a really quality way. So even if it's not the factory direct model, there are options for vehicles already in the field. Thanks, Bill.
Great, thank you, Alex. Chris, this one's probably for you. We had a question from the field on what are the price range what price range are these PSVs compared to a normal car?
Yeah, that's a great question, and always definitely a very important question. So we have, as of 2020, made some improved price points. We've also increased our model line. For example, on our EV, we used to only offer the 20 kilowatt pack, which was a 100-mile range pack, which is much more than most cities or municipalities need. So we now start offering lithium-ion packs at 8 kilowatt. We also have different options of Go4s. We have a flat deck model that starts at 21,500. And then we also have the Max and Max 3 that start with 6 kilowatt packs. So the 6 kilowatt Max LSV starts at $16,950. This of course excludes freight, taxes, PDI, etc. But just to give you a little bit of an idea, so we're fairly in line with normal cars. Where we shine is just that it's task specific. So efficiencies are going to increase, and we have a very interesting cost of ownership study or comparison that shows if you have a net 20% gain in efficiency over the life of this model, what would that equate to with the amount of citations you give weekly? And it's really a tremendous figure when you compare, let's say you can find, an entry-level compact mass market vehicle for $4,000 cheaper. You will make that up very quickly when you consider time efficiency gains. And if you do have any other questions, please reach out after. I will get more into detail with specifics.
No, that's great, Chris. Thank you. And I know there's a couple of questions we're not going to be able to get to. So this last one, because it looks like we're a little over the half hour, we had a half hour slotted. Will the LPR system, and Chris, this is probably better for you, can the LPR system work on an electric Go4 as opposed to a gas Go4?
Yes, absolutely. The draw from the LPR unit has been measured, and it's extremely minimal. So we're talking like under 1% of the main traction pack. The main draw is from heat on an electric vehicle and secondary AC. Third would be LED lighting, the LPR hardware, etc. So the answer would be minimal.
That's great. Well, thank you, Chris, for that. And I know there's a couple other questions that were submitted, some around cost for the LPR add-ons, the Go4, and we will respond to you directly via email. If there's no other questions from the field at this time, and again, we want to try to respect everyone's time, we're going to conclude the webinar today and certainly appreciate everyone's attendance and participation. And for those of you that did submit questions and were not able to get answered, we will respond to you directly. Thank you on behalf of Motorola Solutions and Westward Industries. We appreciate everyone's time and attendance and participation today, and ask everyone that they stay safe, and we'll talk to you all soon. Hopefully see you in person soon as well. Thank you.